Test one, two. Test one. Oh, hold on, guys. Oh, yeah. Test one, two. Test one, two. Everything is laggy, but it's okay. It's okay. All right, it's 9:30. It's 9:30. All right. It is the 3rd-year anniversary of Backpacking America. Yay! Because I forgot to program sound effects. Yay! Wow. It's really been 3 years. I feel like the show as a whole changed so much. And for this episode, I want to take it as a moment of reflection and, looking at the past, the present, and what's to come in the future. And I mean, man, this show has come a long way. Um, and this is my favorite story to tell whenever I speak about backpacking America. Uh, I started this out because all of my friends were music majors, and they had albums and bands and LPs and all this shit, and I didn't have anything. I was literally like, what do I do? Now, they were music majors, and I was a mass communications major. I was about 19 at the time. And I was like, man, like, what am I going to do if I'm going to compete? Like, I need my own stuff. And I'm just like, dude, what do I do? So I decided I'm gonna make a podcast because that's really all I can do in media. I was also going to school for radio, so it's like I can't I don't have a radio station. I can't buy a radio station, and my college station is cool, but like I need something sustainable that I can make into a business. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do Backpacking America. I'm gonna go across the country and I'm gonna talk to different people. So I bought a shitload of equipment, and I said, you know what? We're just gonna do it. And if I don't do this, if I can't stick with this, then I need to change my major because I'm in big trouble if I don't like doing this. So I took a huge financial risk. I took a huge moral risk, not moral risk, a huge mental risk really, because it was like, okay, what do I do? If I change my major, I'm screwed. Um, so I ended up loving it though. And I made a bunch of episodes when I first started. I think the first one was where I just talked about like my life coming out of high school and going into college. That was like my very first episode, and that was back when I had seasons on this show. And I was like, this is it, man. So I went around, walking around with my buddy Alex. We went to a couple of different towns, and then I started making some more solo episodes. And then I started interviewing people in person. But then, the pandemic happened. And it was around the time, right before the pandemic happened, I think it was the fall of 2019, I said, seasons are ridiculous. So I stopped doing seasons. And then the pandemic happened, and I stopped interviewing people in person for a very long time. And that's when I ended up interviewing people from around the country through Zoom. And I mean, we've had a lot of cool guests. We've had uh, pirate radio guys. We had Kent Chamberlain, who was doing a commune out in the desert. I've interviewed activists and professors and union members and, guys on the street, local business owners, all this type of things. And it's really, as much as it's changed in the format, in the professional quality, in my own mentality, as much as the podcast has changed with me, its goal has relatively stayed the same, which the goal was always, even though I had my own business motivations and my own, um, uh, what was it, educational motivations, where it was like, oh, I want this to be like um, I want this to be like a portfolio for me for when I apply to jobs post grad, and it has helped me with that. Thank God. That mission accomplished. Mission accomplished on that end. But the main mission was always to be providing a voice for people that never really have it. And that means the average person, because I always felt that the average person's stories were so much more entertaining than what I'd see on actual television or radio. I would be sitting around with my buddies and we'd be talking, we'd be shooting the shit about like, God and like communism and capitalism and the history of the country, and we would just be chilling on a Saturday night, after a party talking about these things. And those were just so interesting. They were very interesting conversations, and it was real. It was coming not from an educated perspective, which every now and then is nice. I do have professors on the show frequently, but it's also good to have the regular person's perspective because, not everyone is a philosopher or a professor or a theologian sometimes it's a regular person that's giving their perspective, and that's always more interesting because we're not grounded in a doctrine or a philosophy. We're not trying to prove a point. It's more just like we see something, we talk about it, we react to it, we theorize about it, but at the end of the day, it's free, it's flowing, it's a different air to it. And even if when I was in Atlanta, right, I met Kay from K Spicy Ribs, who's unfortunately no longer with us today. And he was talking to me about like what Atlanta was like, the food he was cooking, how long he's been cooking, his passion for barbecue. Uh, I mean, what a beautiful man. And he really, that was so interesting. I would pay to listen to something like that instead of, that was infinitely more entertaining than going on CNN or MSNBC and listening to like an analyst or, a professional chef. Way infinitely more interesting because this guy was just busting it out in the corner, man. He was slinging out, Jamaican food left and right on his big barbecue, and that to me was precious and priceless. And the fact that I got to speak to him before he died, that's a real gift. And I'm glad that I could immortalize him a little bit in my show, and that I have that recording. Like that's a gift. That's a real gift. There's a lot of other people that I've spoken to too over the years that just have these visions and have been through these struggles. Like when I talk to a union organizers aren't really, they ain't really mentioned in the media like that, or at least unless they're like the Amazon guy. But the local small unions, those guys are never spoken about, and to hear their struggles about what they went through the pandemic was that's invaluable. That's an invaluable, collection. My whole goal is really to collect the American experience and the different ideas and thought processes of people and put them in this audio catalog for people to look at and maybe even use for their research. Because it is important. The average person sees the effects of what the elite um, enact. We are the reaction to what they do. So this project to me, especially over these past 3 years, has always been about preserving and talking to people that are average, ordinary people that never get um, their voices put out there. And this has been a constant. This show has always been a constant in my life. Whether I'm putting out an episode every other day or once a week, it ebbs and flows with how I feel, what's going on in my life, but it's always been there. There's always been Backpacking America. There's always been that I need to do this now. I got to tell you, it was very difficult to get up this morning and do this show. For me lately, it's just been pretty difficult to focus on one thing at a time. I've been really busy and just I've been letting some stress get to me, and it's like trying to conquer that. And today I feel good. Today I feel grounded. And today I was like, this is my 3rd-year anniversary. I have to do something. And, my 2nd-year anniversary, that was pretty cool. I did a 2-hour-long radio-esque program with music in the background. I don't have 2 hours today. But what I do have is the time to talk about and reflect and to appreciate and thank all of you who made these past 3 years worth it and possible. There are 1,500 of you that take time out of your day to listen to me speak, and that means the world to me because it means that I'm doing something right for you to give up your time like that. And for that, I really appreciate that, and it's been an honor bringing these different types of people and stories to you. This show has changed a lot with me, like I said earlier in the show. It's changed a lot with me in that I started taking it more like a business. Even though I've stuck to the original core values, I have merchandise, I have hoodies, I have shirts. Hold on. Yeah, I got this shirt right here. I got these. This is on my shop link um in my show, right? Wait, is it okay? This is still recording. That's good. I thought I couldn't hear myself for a second. But yeah, I got this pink shirt right here. It comes in all bunch of different colors with the Backpacking America logo just emblazoned on the front. If you could see it like that. I don't know if Yeah, for my Twitch viewers and my everyone watching this on the visual end of it, why can't I hear myself? There we go. Um, yeah, on the visual end of it, you guys could see the shirt. It's really that was something new. I wanted merchandise. I was like, why can bands have merchandise but I can't have merchandise? So I really wanted to make a brand for myself. And I have hoodies, I have mugs, I have towels, I have backpacks. These are cool things for people. And the whole goal of it wasn't even really to make money. Like, obviously, I want to make money. But at the end of the day, I really want people just to be like, wow, I really like this podcast. I just want to wear the shirt, or I want to wear the hoodie or wear the towel, because it's based. It's cool, man. Can you imagine having a Backpacking America mug? That is so freaking cool. Um, I honestly wholeheartedly believe in merchandising being an essential part of anything. And it's thought provoking. It gets people to ask questions, or maybe they'll, if they don't even walk up to you, they'll be like, "Oh, that looks like a cool podcast," or "That looks cool." Like, let me listen to it. Um, I'm trying to do some quick tech fixes right now because for some reason, I can't. I have to turn my volume up really loud to hear myself. I don't tell me these things are starting to go already. When you have equipment for a very long time, it starts to shit out on you. And unfortunately, in podcasting and in radio, that holds true equally the same. But it's a testament to show you how long I've been doing this stuff. Equipment may not last forever, but the idea does. So yeah, and that's another thing too is equipment. Um, the original Backpacking America setup was literally just a Zoom recorder and a microphone. That was the original Backpacking America setup. I would walk around or I'd place it on a table and I would just talk to people like that. The whole Backpacking America setup would be the size of my phone. And I ain't gonna hold you, baby. It was tough doing that because what would happen is when I'd hold the microphone, like the joint in my thumb would crack. So if you listen carefully to like the early episodes, you'll hear my thumb crack, and you'll hear like a in the original episodes, and that always ticked me off. And I've recorded various introductions for this. I've played around with different intro formats and conclusion formats, and at the end of the day, the one that I'm using now is my favorite. I do need to update the conclusion, or the outro rather. I need to update the outro because that is like it's ready to start and end your work week every Monday and Friday. That's outdated because now I just kind of update whenever. Um, and I really want to try and get every day. And I have been pumping out more episodes too. That's another thing about Backpacking America is that maybe I used to upload like once a week, and that would be the hard limit. And sometimes it would be like I'll upload twice a month, but it's gotten more consistent. That's the thing too, because I learned consistency is key, and I want this thing to grow. There's also the social media end of it. I upload all of these things to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. Originally, Backpacking America, I had an Instagram, but I would just post screenshots of what the episode was, and then I would use Headliner to make just little audio snippets. But then Reels came out, and I realized how important Reels were, so I started taking clips of my audio stream. But then I realized that using Reels and taking the stream and putting it to Reels, the quality just dramatically decreases. And I'm like, okay, well, now I need to make a different type of thing for Reels. So, I might not even post 30-second to 60-second clips of my stream anymore and instead just do original content because I'm already uploading the full video anyway to Instagram. So I just need to figure out a way now to promote my episodes in a different manner. Um, it's constantly thinking and innovating and looking at works and what doesn't work and seeing, the value in it. And at the end of the day, that's what has always been a constant too, if you will, is always changing the format, always seeing what works new and what doesn't work new. Um, this show, as you know, has been mostly a political show, but it also covers the cultural end of things. But it always gets rooted back to Marxism, to politics, because that's also another passion of mine. And I try not to do that, but it's just when you're passionate about something, it comes out, and it's very hard to talk about anything without that Marxist lens. Because it's rooted, because Marxism is really the analysis of the material and the nature and society interacting with each other. It's dialectical materialism. So naturally, Marxism does come into play with that. Like, how does nature affect society, and how does that overall affect history? That's Marxism. So it's very hard not to include that lens when I see the world that way. But that is how the show is structured, and that is how the thought process is put into it and structuring it. But the social media aspect has changed drastically for me. I'm even going to start looking into how can I multi-stream, where I could stream on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube all at the same time instead of just on Twitch, because that will even be, important. Also, if you guys hear drilling in the background, my house is getting renovated, so sorry guys. But happy 3 years, gang gang. So yeah, that's also what's changed, and for the future, you're gonna see a lot more multimedia content. I didn't originally want to get into multimedia. I don't even like television really. I don't, not that I don't like having my face on a screen, but it's just like it's so much easier to do audio. But as I've grown, in age and in technical capability, I've realized that video is not that difficult and social media is not that difficult, at least anymore. So when I think of the future, it's going to be a multimedia project, and you're going to see a lot more fun content. You're going to see a lot more of me putting out just random reels of what I've been doing throughout the day, because it's Backpacking America. Like, why am I not putting my reels of when I'm going out with my boys on Backpacking America? Why am I not, you know airing my views more? I did that a little bit when I was working the morning shift at in my job currently, and JVC. And honestly, like, I, that's because I had that time in that gap in the morning where I was like, I have to do something. I have to get money. I have to get big on this so I can get out of this job. And then I got another shift that had better hours. So like this past month and a half, I've been trying to adjust to this new life, and that's why the content has kind of slacked a little bit, which I want to get back to. So you're gonna see more reels. You're gonna see daily reels, just me doing stuff, and because it's Backpacking America, I just have to embody that. So you're gonna see more of that stuff. You're gonna see more of fun things and my opinions and thoughts. You're gonna see that on Instagram. I highly recommend you. It's so cool too because I got Backpacking America on Instagram, like the whole thing. Just type that in on Instagram, and you'll get access to all that digital content. That's stuff you can't access if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. It's stuff you can't listen to if you're on Spotify. You're only getting the audio content, which is fantastic, by the way. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but the future is multimedia for this venue. People want to see. People want to see and see things that are quick and cool and just have like that instant dopamine hit. And unfortunately, as much as I hate uh, that type of stuff, it's what gets people attention. So my whole goal too was to bring back long format. I love long format. I think it's fantastic. It tells a complete story. And you need the lulls and the highs to get the full experience of life. And that's what I want to mimic in this show. But everyone's so plugged into that 30-second thing. If they see my show, my theory is that if they see my 30-second content on Instagram, it pulls them in to listen to my podcast. And if they see the long format of the podcast, they'll maybe be like, oh my God, wow, something that's long, something that's in depth. I've always been looking for this. So maybe, that 30-second mindless scrolling on Instagram leads them to this long format program to kind of trick them into thinking that, oh, this is going to be just like, oh, this is a cool podcast. But it's more than just a cool podcast. It's going in depth into someone's life that, you're going to get a perspective that you may not ever get. It's basically like the way I look at this podcast is if you're walking down the street and you see these two guys having this really in-depth, passionate conversation, and you're compelled to listen a little bit, or at least eavesdrop a little bit. That's what this podcast is. It's that eavesdrop. It's that it's that moment, that I want to preserve in my podcast. And that's my whole strategy is like basically you're walking down the street when you're scrolling through your reels and you see something that looks interesting. You check it out a little bit, you eavesdrop a little bit, and you're like, oh, this looks like a cool podcast. So you listen, and then you're like, damn, I'm hooked. And now you just made a new friend, which is me and my guest. So that's basically my marketing strategy for how I want to do this. And that's what you're going to see in the future. You're going to see a lot more short digital content and hopefully live streams on Instagram while I'm going live here. And I want to bring this to the people. I want people to listen, not just for like a profit motive, but for their own enjoyment, for the sake of preserving a part of the country that's not heard. And that's the story of the working man, of all gender, of all race, but at the end of the day, all working people. If you're a worker, I want to hear from you. You know, if you're someone that builds things, I want to hear from you. You're someone that creates things, I want to hear from you. You're someone that, just works in a fucking office building, but you go traveling every year and you do all this crazy stuff that no one would ever expect you to do. Like, I want to hear it. Because the whole thing is getting rid of the expected. I want the unexpected. I want the side of a person that isn't shown, that, isn't stereotyped. And, I love telling the story of the average person because it's also anti-corporate, right? In a lot of corporate media, no one really cares about the average person. They care about the average business owner. They care about, the millionaire. They care about the specialist. They don't care about the people that listen. They don't care about the listener. I care about the listener. And that's very antithetical to the corporate message of media. The whole point of media is to sell. And, okay, this person wants to pay to be on air, or we're going to get this contributor to be on CNN. And we're going to tell you what the fact is. But it's like, I'm not telling you what the fact is. I'm just asking questions of regular people and trying to get their perspective. Now, overall, that is the goal of a podcast, right? But a lot of podcasts try to mimic NPR or CNN or MSNBC, and they try to be profound, and they're really just average and lame. And I'm not trying to be anything. I'm just asking questions and saying, hey, do you want to be on my show? Like I had Frank Pomada on in my last episode, right? And he is an employment counselor. Most people wouldn't interview an employment counselor. They're like, oh, I want like the guy that owns a Ferrari, or I want the State Department of Labor president or something. Like, they want the big guy. Well, the little guy has a lot of information. He gave us so much information about, if you live on Long Island, where to find a job, what job fairs do, the second chances given to former convicts, the housing market. He gave us so much information on how to get employment if you need employment, and that there is hope, and that there are resources there. You just have to look for them. So, that's an important lesson too. There's hope so long as you just look for it. Sorry, I'm getting a phone call. So, that's really what it is. It's asking the story of the average ordinary person. And my editing and promotional tactics, right? It's not designed to mimic a corporation. It's designed to show the person. So when I edit a show, one thing, and I always got flack for this in college too, was oh my god, I have an ant running around I hate ants. Anyway, when I was in college, my professors would always say, your show is too long. You need to edit things out. You need to cut things out. And for some projects, I begrudgingly did it because they're like, no, for you need to do short format. You need to cut it down to 20 minutes because it's not marketable if it's over 20 minutes. And I'm like, that is so bullshit. That is bullshit. At that time, when I was in college, I was getting about like 300 listeners a month. Sticking to my guns and sticking to my format, I got 1,500 listeners a month. I worked my way up in like a year. And the thing, it's just consistency. It's not the format. And a lot of the corporates, they want 20 minutes because people's attention span is slow. And I'm like, well, no, I want to fight that. That's the whole purpose of me doing this, is fighting it. If you listen to some of my, like the Pirate Radio series and all that, or it was the Pirate Radio series. I forgot what series it was, but I did like some miniature documentary, like a series of mini documentaries. And that was like one of my senior thesis projects. And it was just kind of like, not my thesis, it was my senior seminar project. It was the last project I needed before I graduated. And I loved it. It was a good product, but it's not me. I don't do that. I talk to people, I let them speak their mind, and I want everything, every pause, every awkward moment. I want all of that. And I don't care if it's marketable. I'm going to make it marketable because there is a market for that. And the whole point of like cutting things down to accommodate the listener's small attention span, that's not what I do. Having a smaller attention span is a national security risk. It's not good for society. It's not good for the country if you can't focus. I want people to focus again. And if they don't want to listen to it, then, well, that's on them. I'm creating a show that people want to listen to. And not for nothing, if you have a good guest, and that doesn't mean a famous guest, that doesn't mean someone in prominent position. If you have a guest that's fun, or if you're talking about a topic for an hour that you're really passionate about and you're making good points, it doesn't need to be 20 minutes. They will listen for an hour, or they'll at least listen to more than 20 minutes if they don't listen to the full hour. You understand? So it's not, 20 minutes is not a, not that they have a point, not that they don't have a point, but I want to fight against that perspective. Now, I did capitulate a little bit with Reels and with all that stuff because you get thousands of views in 10 minutes with Reels. So it's just kind of like, all right, like I need to get people to listen to this. That's a good marketing strategy. But the core content, which is audio, at the end of the day, the core content is audio. And as long as that sticks to long format, that's all I really care about. Because I want people to feel engaged. I want people to learn something. And you can't do that in 20 minutes or less. Because then you have to make parts. You have to make separate parts. You can't do a 20-minute thing and get that all out. At least for me. Because all the questions I ask, they're deep questions that require committed answers. Some answers to a question I ask take 10 minutes to explain. It takes 10 minutes for them to actually like answer the question thoughtfully and concretely. That's half of an episode right there. I ask real questions. If it's a stupid podcast that takes about 30 minutes, not stupid, but if it's like, sometimes I have to cut the podcast short because I'm on a schedule. But if I have time, I let them go on. And, maybe I get to only ask 2 questions. But as long as I get that deep answer, I don't really care. But the goal is not to keep it short. The goal is to keep it long. Now, if it happens to be a short episode, that's one thing. But because I don't want to extend an episode to an hour just for the sake of it being an hour. That's another thing people do too. They're like, the podcast has to be 60 minutes. It has to be cut for 60 minutes. Dog, there's some episodes I have that are 33:20 or like 38:40 or 25:10. There's no time frame. The time frame is if the show is done, the show is done. If the show's not done, the show's not done. It just goes until it is completed. That's a podcast. This is not radio. It doesn't have to be structured. It doesn't have to be to a certain format or liking. You're just making more work for yourself. And that's another thing too. So that's something else that, is anti-corporate in itself. It's not strict. It's free-flowing. I hate being constricted. In my job right now, we either have to fit in for commercial breaks because we have commercial breaks of 7-minute blocks, 2-minute blocks, or 9-minute blocks. Each show that we do has either a 21-minute segment, 2 21-minute segments for the hour, or an 11-minute, a 10-minute, an 11-minute, and a 10-minute. So every half hour, there's an 11:10, and then there's a commercial break. There's a 7-minute break, and there's an 11:10. So that's an hour. And it's like, I see people struggle with that. It's so difficult because we all have so much to say, but it's hard to say it in 11 minutes or 10 minutes. In 21 minutes, you could have more of a free-flowing discussion. But the thing is, this is not that. And I understand advertisers, all that. It's important for radio. But this is a lot different. This is a podcast. You don't have to structure it. So my whole thing was not to be like the corporations either. Marketing-wise, sure, you got to borrow a little bit. You got to capitulate in some areas where it's like, okay, I need the Reels. I need the Instagram. I need the multimedia. Okay. But you don't have to, like, honestly, even if I didn't do that and I still did this, I'd probably still be just as successful because I'm still being consistent and it's still a good show. It would just be more word of mouth, and maybe I'd have to make an email list. But the thing is, at the end of the day, I'm not trying to be another corporation. I'm not trying to be another NPR. I'm not trying to be another MSNBC or CNN. I'm not trying to be like other podcasts where they sound uber professional and super crisp. And they do this stupid gay voice. It's like, nah, dude, like I've seen some podcasts, they're so highly edited, but they only put out like 1 episode a week. Or 1 episode every 2 weeks. Or 1 episode a month. And it's like, dude, like, not for nothing. And they have like these show notes all over the place, and then they don't even use them. They put so much time into prep. Here's what I've learned too doing this. You make a plan, you don't stick to the plan. not at least in the way you put it. So I wrote down 5 things for this show, right? Go over reflections on the past 3 years. What does this project mean to me? Address that this has been a constant in my changing life and show how the show's changed with me. Show the listener what to expect in the future, and explain your love for telling stories of the average ordinary person and the anti-corporate messaging of the show. Explain how your editing and promotional tactics are designed not to mimic a corporation. I really hit all 6 of those within the first minute of the show, but then I was like, all right, like I got to go down the list and kind of just talk about it. It's a guide. Use your show notes as a guide. Don't script out every little thing. If you script every little thing, it's going to sound scripted. My whole thing is free flowing discussion and conversation, and I really don't want to um betray that by scripting it. Now, everyone else has their own prerogative. I totally understand wanting to, fine tune everything and script everything. If that's really what you want to do, go for it. But I don't want to be like that. And a lot of podcasters feel like they have to be like that. A lot of radio people feel like they have to be like that. I don't have to be like that because I'm just going to talk and I'm going to do my own thing. And it feels more homey and down to earth and like I'm talking to a friend. So that's really what I want to do at the end of the day. I don't want to, come off as phony or fake or just overly corporate and overly prepared for no reason. Especially when people don't follow the show notes. You do all that prep and then you don't follow it. Or, the thing is, too, it's different ways of looking at it. Like, I believe in pumping out content left and right, and I feel like I'm a professional, and I do this professionally, and I do it well. There's some people that feel the opposite, where it's like, we need 1 episode a week. It's got to be 60 minutes. We're going to carefully plan this. We're going to carefully look for a guest. It's a lot of work, and for one show. The way I look at it is if there's multiple, if I had to do the show every day, you understand? If I was in radio and I had to do this every day, because I did this too to prepare myself for a career in talk radio. So if I am doing this every day, I can't do that much show prep to the level that these podcasters do it, where it's like they write 6 pages of notes and they carefully research, what's the next best guest. You got to do that every day then. And these guys take hours, like 10 to 12 hours during the week to like figure it out. And I'm like, dude, like you don't have time for that. You just got to roll with it, dude. You just got to roll with it. And that's really what radio is rolling with it. And I'm applying that logic here because it's just more homey. You turn on a radio and that's your friend. That's supposed to be like who gets you through your drive, who gets you through the day, who's talking to you, when you're drinking at night. That type of deal. It's a fireside chat, and that's what this is supposed to be. I don't like the corporate, high gloss, high format podcast that everyone has, where they have like the super expensive setup and all. Like you don't need all that stuff. And it's very corporate. It's professional to the point where it excludes the average person. I don't really like that. I want to bring the average person here. I want to bring the people to me, and I want them to feel like they're getting something new and being at least having their consciousness expanded, or at least, if they come on the show, it's to promote something of theirs or to air a grievance they have, or we discuss an important topic. I had my boy Derek on there on this show multiple times, and we talked about cryptocurrency and healthy eating, or I had my boy Zero Gravity Igor. He came on here. We talked about calisthenics for a little bit. These are average, ordinary people. Or my boy Nate, bro, like from Innate Cleaning, man. He pulled up and we talked about like dating apps and male perspectives on dating apps, dude. We're all average, ordinary people, but we're talking about really important, complex things. We're talking about fitness. We're talking about crypto. We're talking about dating and relationships. And these aren't experts. These aren't professors. These are just people I know and people that are my friends. And we were able to have really good conversations that highlighted a lot of ways that people feel. So that's the overall goal of this podcast. And throughout the past 3 years, while the show's varied in quality, in content, and in availability, where you can access it, the main goal has always been the same, and that's always been to highlight people, and that's always been to have people a part of the show. So with that, I want to thank everyone for making the past 3 years possible. I appreciate all 1,500 of you. I really appreciate all the support I've gotten, especially from my parents, my mom and my dad, um, from my friends, from my coworkers, from people I went to school with. I appreciate all you guys for liking, sharing, commenting, talking about it, whether it was good or bad. There's no such thing as bad publicity. I'm talking to all my haters out there. There's a lot of them. Uh, Thank you from the bottom of my heart, because everyone contributed to making my show a good one and adding a layer of depth and community to it that, at first would seem like, oh, what is this? But there is a community, and it's a good community for sure. And I want to thank that community for making all this possible, for being a constant source of inspiration. And I want to thank all the kids in the Oneana music community from when I was in school. Not that you new kids are bad or anything, but the kids that were doing music shows and making bands when I was in college from 2017 to 2021. I want to thank all of you guys, because y'all were a constant source of inspiration for me to uh, create something like this, and got me thinking about the future and saying, I need to do something like that, because they're thinking ahead and I'm not thinking ahead. I'm thinking about my degree, not about my life after the degree. So I want to thank each and every one of you. I want to thank Jared Cowan and Bake Shrimp. I want to thank Alex Lupo, best guitar player ever. I want to thank Jeffrey Trees for being a constant source of inspiration and support. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, for using me as your photographer, your videographer, um, for coming on my show, for being a part of Wildin' Out Wednesday while that lasted. That was fun. I want to thank so many people, seriously, because without all of you guys, and if I didn't name you, I'm sorry, but there's so many of you that made this possible. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much, and thank you for listening to episode 191 of Backpacking America, my 3rd-year anniversary episode. And from the bottom of my heart, I will see you next time, and have a wonderful day.